Hi, I'm Nimish Shah, CEO of Blick Rothenberg. About 4 weeks ago, the former Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, handed in his resignation to Boris Johnson, the then Prime Minister, which created a catalyst for a Conservative leadership contest and the race for a new Prime Minister, which has been dominated by tax. I'm here today to talk to Neil Lancaster, private client partner at Blick Rothenberg, to go through the policies of Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, the last two remaining candidates. Morning, Neil. Just give us a bit of a summary on what Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have said so far.
So the two candidates have come to the leadership campaign with two very, very different approaches. Liz Truss, on the one hand, really focusing on growth. Firstly, planning to cut the projected corporation tax rise to 25% from next April, back down to 19%, which is where it currently stands. Equally, she wants to cut the 1.25% rise in national insurance contributions on salaries, and which also hits dividends as well. Rishi Sunak wants to hold the line on his policies that he's already announced on both the national insurance and the corporation tax. Both candidates have said that they want to do something on fuel duty. Rishi Sunak with a 1-year moratorium on a rise in fuel duty. Liz Truss has stated that she will also do something on fuel duty, but we don't know fully exactly what that's going to be.
And it sounds like that Liz Truss is trying to reverse a lot of the policies that Rishi Sunak introduced as Chancellor, and almost a bit of a dig at him. But both candidates, are they really tackling that inflationary impact?
In reality, not really. And there is an argument to suggest that some of their tax policies could make the inflation problem worse. In reality, some of the policies, for example, the corporation tax rise, won't actually hit consumers' pockets, and that represents the majority of the tax saving that their policies are looking to make. Arguably, reducing the national insurance again puts more money in people's pockets and could fuel consumer spending. That's certainly one argument. One of the biggest concerns that clients have right now, and indeed I have right now, is interest rates. And if we don't tackle inflation, and if tax policy doesn't tackle inflation, then ultimately interest rates will continue to rise closer to that threshold where it's considered very painful for everyday households.
And a leadership contest that's been dominated by tax. Rishi Sunak saying there's just not enough in the system to give away the circa 40 billion of tax cuts that Liz Truss is claiming to be able to give away if she gets into Downing Street. But is there that room in the system? Who's right here?
I don't think it's a case of being right or wrong. Both candidates' policies have their own merits. On the one hand, Rishi Sunak holding the line is probably going to have the best impact on inflation and leave the Bank of England where it needs to be to tackle interest rates and tackle inflation. Liz Truss, on the other hand, her policies will put cash in people's back pockets. However, that does risk having an impact on inflation, and that will put the Bank of England in a difficult position as it looks to make further decisions on interest rate rises in the future. And given where inflation is right now at just over 9%, the biggest threat to household budgets right now is represented by mortgage costs and cost of debt. And really, controlling inflation has to be a key priority. Arguably, neither candidate's proposals go far enough to tackle inflation. They're really aimed at grabbing votes from the candidate.
And arguably, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Neil, but riding it out, letting fuel prices increase, as painful as that sounds, that will have a deflationary impact. That will have less money in people's pockets, which will then bring down inflation over a 12-month period. But it's going to be a really painful 12 months. And politically, with an election in April 2024, I don't think either candidate has got that room to breathe. But if we didn't have any of this right now, and that's a big hypothetical if, what really needs to be done with taxes?
That's a good question, Nimesh. The reality is both candidates are running for an election here. In reality, when either of them is elected, they're going to face some very, very stark choices. And the reality of doing an emergency budget or a budget come October, April, is they're going to be faced with some very harsh realities. Whether they can follow through on some of these promises without pulling back some of these tax giveaways is a very big question.
Yeah, and I think that has to be a reality for certainly Liz Truss, who is promising the big tax cuts. And we had it in the 2019 election where Boris Johnson said that he was going to raise the basic rate limit to £80,000. That never actually happened during his short time as Prime Minister. Roll forward then to the election, and hopefully some of the inflationary impact has dampened down. You're in the seat of being Chancellor now, Neil. What really needs to happen with the UK tax system?
I actually think it's a bit of a mix of both Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, but I prefer Rishi Sunak's approach in the short term, and in the medium term, Liz Truss's approach makes sense. Liz Truss's campaign for growth makes real sense to me. We have to attract the best people to the UK, and to do that, we have to have a very competitive tax system. So having competitive corporation tax rates, having competitive national insurance, social security and income tax rates is also very important particularly for high earners.
Yeah. So if I put you in the hot seat in 24 months' time, Neil, it sounds like you would be that tax-cutting Chancellor. I think the tax-reforming Chancellor that maybe Rishi Sunak wanted to be a couple of years ago. Right Chancellor, possibly wrong Prime Minister, wrong time. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I would probably take Rishi Sunak's approach right now. In 24 months' time, I wouldn't have an election to win, and arguably I would be looking at growth in the economy, particularly with interest rates rising. The cost of our government debt is increasing because our interest payments are far higher than they were 12 months ago. So attracting businesses to the UK, making our businesses in the UK competitive, and also attracting the best people to the UK would be a priority. So in general, going back to the more traditional Conservative mantra of lower taxes would probably be my approach in 24 months' time. But in the meantime, I would probably go with Rishi Sunak's approach of having some short-term pain to control inflation and giving the Bank of England the room they need to control it.
Yeah. Brilliant. No, thank you very much, Neil, for that short discussion. Fascinating what's going to happen over the next few weeks and a new Prime Minister coming in.
Absolutely.
I don't think I'd want to be in that job. I don't think you'd want to be either as well.
Absolutely not.